Alright, YouTube, so we are back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we have a lot to go over today. There was plenty of information that came out yesterday after I got done recording the second video and started uploading it, so obviously I couldn't include it in that video, so we had to do another video today. We're just going to dive into it like usual, and we're going to start out with what is probably the most important piece of information, a question that I personally had yesterday, and we do have confirmation that the Yuffie DLC is in fact PS5 only. There's an FAQ on the Square Enix website about Remake Intergrade, and one of the questions is the Yuffie episode going to be available on PS4? To which they reply that it's optimized for PlayStation 5, so it won't be on PS4. And now that we have confirmation of that, I can in fact be pissed about it, and I am. I think it's ridiculous that we've had Remake for about a year now, and there's just like zero updates, no new content, no new nothing, and we finally get a piece of DLC for it, and it's locked behind next gen, and I think that's just fucking stupid. I'm always 100% honest with you guys. I'll always tell you how I feel about things. If I like it, I like it. If I hate it, I hate it. And I think it's stupid that we were hoping that this game would get some sort of expansion or DLC, and it finally did around the 1 year mark or so. But it's now locked behind a $400 to $500 paywall, which is absurd. Like, you can only play it on PS5. Like, you don't got a PS5 already, that's what you got to drop just to play this. Not to mention just the scarcity of the PS5. That's something we've been dealing with since launch for the next-gen consoles in general. It's just like, anytime they're on sale or there's new stock, like, they just get sold out immediately. Something else I've been thinking about since yesterday that I've just personally not seen anybody else discussing is, since this first piece of DLC for Remake is PS5 only, that almost has to confirm that Part 2 is going to be PS5, right? Like, if they can't even put out DLC on PS4, I don't expect Part 2 to be on PS4. And to be clear here, even though I'm bitching about this, like, I could buy a PS5 if I wanted to. I could have bought a PS5 months ago. When I went to my local Walmart to see if they were selling Cyberpunk like a day early, since Walmarts aren't 24 hours anymore, they weren't. But at the time, they had them in stock. Like, I could have got a PS5 then and there if I wanted to. I just personally don't have an interest in it. For me, it's not a money issue. I just don't want to have to goddamn buy one. I don't want a PS5 right now. And because of this DLC bullshit, they're almost forcing my hand. We have several months until the DLC comes out. It's not until like June 10th. And because of like personal interest, obviously, I want to experience more Remake content and things like that. But also for my channel. Like, I have to be able to play it for my channel and cover it and talk about it and discuss it and things. I hate starting out the video on such a negative front, but I want to give you guys my full thoughts on this. And to be honest, if I wasn't talking about Remake on YouTube, like if it was a game I was playing in my free time, offline, away from people, I would not buy PS5. But they're, again, kind of forcing my hand here. Anyways, on to some other news. So we did get confirmation as well that Remake will in fact be free in March for PlayStation Plus members, which I thought was kind of funny just because when we talked about that, I had a couple comments, I think, in my video about how like Square Enix is super greedy and there's no way they're going to give this game away for free, and yet here we are. And to be clear here, I'm not disagreeing with them being greedy. I just thought it was kind of funny because to me it made a lot of sense for them to give this game away free right before it's about to go out to other platforms. Now, as cool as this is, there is at least one downside to it, and it's that if you get the game for free through PlayStation Plus, you cannot upgrade to the PS5 version for free. You just have to buy it. Hopping back to the DLC really quickly, and this is pure speculation that people were just kind of discussing yesterday. Since this DLC is happening alongside the Remake story that we played, it means that Yuffie was there in the background and we just didn't know about it. So what if she's maybe the one that saved Biggs from like the Sector 7 tower, and possibly Jessie as well, assuming that Jessie's alive. Which I don't think she is. But I am very interested to see all the moments that Yuffie is going to be present for, that we just weren't aware of it, and maybe her even helping us without us knowing. Also, a quick side note that I thought was interesting is I did a video like a year and a half ago in 2019 about how Square Enix could implement the other characters from the main party into Part 1 of Remake, and I got two of them right. One of them was about Cait Sith, and it's pretty simple. It's just because, you know, Cait Sith is Reeve. Reeve works at Shinra. He's in Midgar, and we did get Cait Sith in Part 1. And then also, I mentioned Yuffie could be in Midgar looking for materia, and from the description we got, the brief description, that seems to be what she's doing, is coming to Midgar for materia. I just thought it was kind of cool that I sort of predicted that like a while back. And now we have heard that Intergrade is sort of like the bridge between Part 1 and Part 2. So technically, she's not really a part of Remake Part 1, but in a roundabout way she is. Speaking of which, we have a quote from Nomura about this that says, "For FF7 Intergrade, the word Intergrade has the meaning of being a middle, which serves as the midway point between FF7 and the next installment. It also means to move, which is a nod to moving to a new PS5 system into the next installment." Well, there's your fucking confirmation that Part 2 is going to be PS5. I read over a lot of these tweets last night, but clearly that didn't register till now, so that's pretty much Nomura confirming that Part 2 is going to be PS5 exclusive. So going forward, we have the translation of a pretty big Famitsu interview that Audrey did, and we're not going to read all this, obviously. There's quite a bit here. We're only going to read over what I feel like is video-worthy. So first up, we're going to look at several quotes about Vice, which I learned is how you pronounce his name. I know very little about Dirge Cerberus. I was saying his name wrong as hell yesterday. We're just going to read over this whole section about Vice really quickly. It seems like you battle Vice in the DLC. Why did you choose that character? Since the strongest character, Sephiroth, is already in the game, we wanted to have another formidable boss aside from Sephiroth, so we chose Vice. I personally am curious as to how a battle would play out for the first time with Cloud versus Vice. In fact, I even asked the team to add Vice as a secret boss ever since the PS4 version. You designed the original Vice in Dirge of Cerberus, but he was half naked in that game. Seems like he's wearing clothes in this one. Since he's sort of like a secret boss, I want to present him with a sense of richness to it, so I gave him something to wear on top. It seems like the battle with Vice is done in Shinra's Battle Simulator, but will he be present in other parts of the story as well? What will his battle be like? In regards to details about Vice, all I can say is please wait for more information. There will be a new boss character in the DLC, but is that character going to be different than Vice, such as another character from the compilation perhaps? The new boss character in the Yuffie DLC story is different than Vice. As for who else will appear aside from Vice, well, please wait for more info to find out. So a lot to unpack there. To be honest, I don't remember much about Dirge of Cerberus. I have seen comprehensive breakdowns of the game, like 30, 40-minute videos talking about the story and stuff. I don't remember shit about Vice or how strong he's supposed to be, but it is interesting that Nomura specifically wanted him to be in the game even for the PS4 version. And it will be interesting to see who the boss is of the Yuffie DLC. Next we have a brief description on the story for the DLC and also the character of Sonon and kind of the battle system. It says, what kind of character is the new character Sonon? In FF7R, we briefly touched upon the topic that Barrett's Avalanche and the other Avalanche are two separate groups. Yuffie actually came to Midgar from Materia, but she gets involved on a mission with the other Avalanche group. Basically, Cloud, Barrett, and co. are doing their own thing with their Avalanche group, while Yuffie and the others are doing theirs separately. That's the basic gist of the story. Yuffie and Sonon have a joint battle together. What kind of battle is it? The battle system will be slightly different than FF7R, and you will not be able to control Sonon. The player will control Yuffie in battle instead. In the tactical mode, you will be able to give commands to Sonon, though. As for new gameplay elements, Yuffie and Sonon will be able to battle together. I hope you enjoy this slightly different battle system compared to FF7R. So it seems like Sonon will be sort of like a guest character, but one that you can actually give commands to, so more along the lines of like the summons. When you bring a summon into combat in FF7R, they kind of fight as themselves, but you can still issue commands to them and make use of their ATB gauge. Well, specifically with summons, they're using your ATB gauge, whatever character you're choosing to issue the command with, but Sonon will have his own ATB gauge. Next up, we have a bit of information on the first soldier, which of course is the mobile battle royale game. So first up, they say, FF7 The First Soldier uses Midgar as its battleground, but where exactly does this installment take place within the Final Fantasy VII story? Within the various compilations in Final Fantasy VII, this game is the first to take place chronologically during a time when Soldier was not a thing yet, but is about Soldier cadets and how Soldier gets established. The story itself isn't very dense given the nature of the game, but it does form the backbone of the Soldier story. So like I said yesterday, this is kind of the saving grace for me when it comes to this game. It might be fun to play, that remains to be seen of course, but the story that's here. This is like the beginning, this is the earliest we've ever had in the timeline when it comes to FF7, and kind of how they started forming and creating the Soldier program. That is interesting to me. The Soldier cadets fight not only monsters, but the Cutter enemy, Scorpion Sentinel, and other Shinra machines. What is the reason behind that? It's all part of their Soldier training. They have to undergo various situations to experience realistic battles. Can you give us a basic rundown of the battle rules? Is it along the lines of last man standing wins, or are there team battles? There are solo and trio battles, and the winner is the last person or last team remaining. I did kind of briefly mention the Scorpion Sentinel in yesterday's video, so I'm kind of curious how that works. Like, is it a separate game mode where we fight the enemies like with your friends or something like that, or are these enemies on the Battle Royale map? Because that's something we've seen before in other Battle Royales, like for example, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, like the Blackout mode, the BR mode, that had like certain areas around the map where there were zombies. So you could fight zombies along with the people that you're also fighting. And even with the Call of Duty Mobile Battle Royale, there are certain areas where you could fight zombies and like a big monster. Or I think it was maybe just a big monster. I don't know. I haven't played COD Mobile in a while. And lastly, it says, since this game is a Battle Royale type with RPG elements, there might be some out there who are worried about picking up the game, as it might not be geared for gamers who are not used to that style. How did you go about making a balance for that? One of the fun parts of the Battle Royale game is leveling up by gathering items and subduing monsters, which are RPG elements we have added. This should allow for casual gamers to enjoy the battle game as well. So with that, we get confirmation that there will be a leveling/progression system, but what I'm curious about is if it's just like a generic leveling system, like maybe you level up and unlock like cosmetic items and things, or does leveling actually matter? Does your character like get stronger? Do you unlock abilities as you level up? Next up, we have some info on Ever Crisis, which of course is the mobile chapter-based retelling of the whole FF7 story, which does actually include Before Crisis, by the way. That was an oversight on my end. It was a long day yesterday. For FF7 Ever Crisis, the stories from before Crisis up until Dirge of Cerberus will use a battle system designed especially for Ever Crisis. Doesn't mean FF7 Advent Children, which was originally a movie, will also be playable. Ever Crisis is basically kind of like another remake of the original FF7, using a bird's eye view of the field with chibi characters and also incorporating regular full-body detailed character designs for the battle parts. This game is the answer to those who said they liked the command-style RPG system. The titles are divided into chapters that allows you to have a free gameplay style. The contents will cover the original FF7 and work its way through the compilation of FF7 and include FF7 The First Soldier. That's kind of interesting. In regards to The First Soldier that I mentioned earlier, Ever Crisis will also have part of the story within this game. In particular, since the story covers what happened before Soldier was established, we've also added in a part about that legendary hero's youth. That story in particular is a huge eye-catcher, and we have asked Nojima-san to write the scenario too. We hope you look forward to it. Now, something I was actually kind of curious about with yesterday's video as well, because this is just a retelling of like the whole FF7 story. Was there going to be anything new? And that's confirmation that, yeah, there is. We're going to get some like Sephiroth childhood backstory, potentially. It depends on what he means by youth. That could be a teenager as well, young adult, something like that. There's a lot of people who want a remaster of other games within the compilation. Instead of a remaster, this seems like a completely new game, so why did you decide to combine them all into one game? The concept of this game is to use the original FF7 as its base that players can enjoy. The original FF7, FF7 First Soldier, and FF7R are all separate entities, so I don't think this would wrap up other compilation titles. Will the story of FF7 be presented chronologically, or will the story from FF7 Before Crisis leading up to Dirge of Cerberus be rebuilt specifically for FF7 Ever Crisis? You will not need to play each title in its entirety before the next. Rather, each title will have its own chapters that you can select and play. Think of it more like a chronology of FF7. In regards to the chapters, will the stories be added as new updates? That's right, new chapters will be added every month. So that gives us quite a bit of info. You can play each title separately. Each title has chapters that you can just select and play, and they'll be getting updates every single month, adding new chapters. The only question I still have right now is, like, is this going to be a free game? Does this game cost money? How much is each chapter going to cost? So on and so forth. This game's still far away. It's still not coming out till 2022. I'm sure they'll address that at some point. In regards to the battle parts, it looks like it took the battle system from FF7R and made it into a command-style RPG, but can you briefly explain what the battle system will be like? The battle system for the original FF7 was based on the ATB system, so we'll be going with that game style. The materia setup will also follow the original, and weapons, materia, summons, and limit breaks can also be used, further opening the battle system. So unless I'm interpreting that wrong, it's kind of what I was thinking yesterday. It seems like it's pretty much like turn-based FF7. Characters stand still, you don't control them in the battlefield. A gauge fills up, you choose a command. Pretty much like FF7 original. Since the game seems to be very story-driven, what will you do about voice recording? We're still trying to figure out what to do with voice recording. Since I'm involved in a numerous amount of titles, I'm kind of stuck, and that goes for voice recording as well. Because of that, we even wanted to avoid having to do any voice recording. Since Final Fantasy Ever Crisis will use FF7 and other compilation titles as its base, we thought, why don't we just not have voice recording? However, it's probably necessary to have it during the battle sequences, so we're considering how to do so. If we are to add voices, it will probably be at a minimum. What I think would be absolutely amazing here and would please a shit ton of people is if they do any sort of voice recording for this game, any sort of voiced lines, bring back the legacy cast. That was a complaint for a portion of the FF7 community when it came to Remake is the new English cast. But for this, they've even said in the past that the legacy cast would still be voicing the characters outside of the Remake compilation. Now, it's been a long time since we've seen that quote, and I don't even remember where I seen it at, and who knows if it's still true or was ever true, but that's what they've said before. But bringing back the OG voice actors for this kind of spin-off mobile game would be pretty awesome, and I would love me some more George Newbern. I'm never going to say no to that. I feel like with this mobile game, they could get a big W for pleasing the community. It seems like they're giving us a turn-based Final Fantasy VII with improved graphics, and if you give it voice lines with OG voice actors, it's all W's. Depending on the price, of course. And last up for the Famitsu translations, we have just a couple questions that are kind of in regards to Remake Part 2. The next installment of FF7R is of course highly anticipated, but we also have FF7R Intergrade, FF7 First Soldier out in 2021, and FF7 Ever Crisis starting its service in 2022. Service, that's an interesting term. With the sudden announcement of 3 new titles in the works, will you be the director and concept designer for all of them? Although we announced 3 different FF7 titles this time, as I mentioned earlier, I have an unprecedented amount of work right now. Since we already have FF7R as the base game to work on as well as understand what types of improvements to incorporate, the next FF7R installment will be directed by Hamaguchi, co-director of FF7R. I will carry forth as the creative director for FF7R as well as the mobile games. However, this won't change my basic involvement with the works, so I hope for your continued support. So as per usual, Nomura has his hands in far too many works at the same time, which is never a good sign. He's always working on way too many projects, which I think is good that they kind of transferred the director role specifically to Hamaguchi. We need somebody that can be way more focused on the remake project. Not that I'm against Nomura working on other things, but it's just like, this is standard, right? He's always working on Kingdom Hearts, he's always working on this, that, and the other. 3 or 4 or 5, 10 projects at once. This is a big-ass answer, but it is kind of in regards to part 2, so we gotta read it. Since your work with FF7 titles will not change much, you're also focusing on other titles too, right? We look forward to those. With the announcement of 3 new titles, can you please say a few words to fans who are also anticipating the next FF7R installment? In order to make the game compatible with the PS5, there's a lot of things happening in all directions that we had to sort through. However, our staff are incredibly dedicated and made it in a very timely manner. We'd like you to first enjoy FF7R Intergrade. In regards to the title Intergrade, the original FF7 was called FF7 International for the improved overseas version, so it pays homage to the original title. The word Intergrade, it has the meaning of being in the middle. We already read all that stuff. We also have included a new DLC episode revolving around Yuffie, and there's contents within it that you can't miss. Vice is a formidable opponent in the battle simulator. Also, with the revival of the compilation of FF7 through Ever Crisis and First Soldier, I was very surprised when I first heard from Katase that they were planning to do both at the same time. I thought they would focus on one at a time, but Katase said, nope, we're doing both at the same time. I even remember suggesting they should narrow down their workload. However, they were all bonded by producer Ichikawa's strong enthusiasm, and he said, if we are to do it, we need to do it without any loss in quality. It seemed like an impossible request at first, but we overcame the battle and got it in the clear. I'm so happy that we were able to announce these titles. We'll also open a beta test to get feedback, so I hope you look forward to that. As you wait for the next installment of FF7R, I hope you're able to thoroughly enjoy these 3 new titles. Man, that answer was a thick bitch. Now, in regards to the beta, I'm wondering if he's talking about both mobile games or just the Battle Royale, because the Battle Royale makes the most sense. It's an online game. Those usually have a beta. Or if there's also going to be some sort of beta/demo thing for Ever Crisis as well. But of course, since they're dropping all this content, people are asking the question, okay, so we have Intergrade coming out in a couple of months. We have First Soldier coming out sometime within 2021, and then in 2022, we have Ever Crisis coming out. Kind of has to make you wonder what's going on with Remake Part 2. Is that going to be something we even see or hear about this year or next year? Or is that going to be a lot later? Because they seem to be focused on a lot of other projects. And to be honest, as cool as some of this stuff is, I'd rather have none of it and them just focus on Remake Part 2. Because they're doing so many other projects, like, just don't worry about that shit. Let's just focus on the big game here. But as it is, I think that's pretty much the info that I want to cover in this video. There might be some other stuff out there that we didn't talk about today, but goddamn, this video is so much longer than we ever make our videos, and I need to end it. Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about anything we talked about in this video, and if there is other information out there that did not cover this video, be sure to let me know in the comments for sure. Other than it, that is the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys already want to update more Final Fantasy VII Remake mobile game content. Turn on home notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @DashingDavidYT. I'm on Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.